Okay, are we on? We're on. What time is it? My God, it's 4:44. You gotta be kidding me. Hi, everybody. Neighbor's sleeping, but it's President's Day, so maybe he doesn't have to work. And it snowed out. And we have freezing rain, so we're good. I'm gonna try to talk as loud as I can without being overly disruptive. Listen to a little plastic here. Zazoo Plazz, my alter ego. I'm shifting things around a little bit. I don't know if you can see. I'm in my living room here. It's sort of like I don't know, it's past full moon. It's way past full moon. I don't know what it's doing. I'm not talking about astrology too much. There's not a lot going on this week. It will be, though. We're getting ready. I think March, April, there's going to be eclipse action. There's stuff coming. But lately, I've been focused on getting all those slides in my office and the photos scanned and ready to go for my next project, whatever that might be. I don't know, but yeah, I'm making great progress because there's nowhere to go, nothing to do, and so I'm nose to the grindstone. I've been doing like 4 or 5 boxes of slides every day so I can return them to my dad along with his slide projector from like 1965. It's actually probably before then, before I was born, because that thing is old, but it still works great. I just was rather inept at using it. I couldn't figure out, and I mean, he couldn't use it. He could never figure out. My dad would always put the slides in upside down and then end up, saying, "For crying out loud." And then my mom would start getting upset, and I'd be fidgeting, and it would be hot or whatever. It was only like a couple times a year we'd all sit down and watch them anyway. Because that's how often he developed the film, kids. So, you talk about, I just want to say this before I get going. It's February 17th, Zazoo Plazz Report, 2025. Yeah, President's Day, snow, SNL 50th anniversary. I'm going to watch that later when I have my dinner later. So I wanted to say, shout out to that. That sounds kind of interesting. I don't know about the musical guest. We'll see. No, maybe I'll just watch YouTube videos. Yeah, that's what I'll do. Then I can fast forward through the parts that I maybe don't like. But I want to say this, about Gen X. There's all these videos. I watch other creators, and there's a couple that that I really follow, and they respond to people on Instagram or whatever. And the thing is, what's the toughest generation? Gen X, stop saying that you had it so tough and all this, and I agree. There are generations that maybe were tested, with wars and things like that more than we were. But when you're talking about technological change, when you're talking about sort of a subtle undercurrent of, changes in societal values and morality and things like that, we mid-60s, early 70s babies, we were born in the middle of that. I mean, people were getting, changing their whole ideas about relationships, and about child rearing and family. And this is very relevant for today's readings. Okay. Just, it's kind of like today where, these kids, the younger generations, even, my cousins who are my age, their kids who were millennials, early 90s babies, they're going through this whole do we want kids? Do we want not want kids? Why, why? And, my kids are Gen Z, so, there's speculation. So what is Gen Z going to do, as far as, and each generation does the best they can with what they have, is what I want to say. And we were no different, Gen X coming of age during the 80s. There were a lot of changes. Um, and, there in the 60s, there was spiritual undercurrent. All the generational planets were, you know, Uranus and Pluto were conjoined in 65 when I was born. There was a lot of, just energetic sort of blowback from all of this change, right? That churned up. So, maybe we didn't have world wars when we were growing up, but we certainly had cultural changes, technological changes, family changes in the family unit. You know, I had two uncles and an aunt, who were divorced and remarried a couple, two, three times, and their kids grew up with that, and it affected our family dynamic, and there was a lot of stuff going on that we as kids picked up on. That can't help but reverberate, I think, throughout the generations. And for me, the biggest change was me, with spiritual things, religion, spirituality had a big effect on me growing up Catholic. My parents stayed together, but a lot of my friends' parents didn't. And what do you do when you're Catholic and, all this stuff? It says you can't do this, you can't do that. And this one is talking about that one, and this one, and you go to church and the priests and nuns are saying, you got to do this or else you're going to hell. You got to go. And I grew up and I'm like, I can't do anything. I can't, So just that concept of personal freedom, right? And coming up against all these should not, couldn't, don't do this. It took me a while to realize I could have my own relationship with God. And, it took me till like yesterday to figure this out. That I am within myself, you know, embodied spirit with creative, you know, will that I can go and express, myself as a unique spark, from God in the world, right? So that's what this Zazoo report is about. I hope I'm coming through clearly enough on this because, you know, it's sometimes I'm just winging it here. But, I think God wants us to be that way. He wants us to live in the moment, right? Too much of the problems we have in life come from either living in the past, shoulda, coulda, woulda, done it differently, regrets, all that. If there's anything that's could be called sin, it's staying stuck in, being away from God is what sin is, really. I mean, we're all on earth, separated from source. But to the extent that we're not living in the moment, we're, letting some future, you know, fear, anxiety about the future, or regret, and, um, just ruminating over the past. Those are the things that take us away from God, and that's what sin is, you know. And whether it's jealousy or, wanting revenge or any of these things, right? These human emotions. Um, uh, yeah, so that's what today is about. The readings, I'm going to plunge right into the readings because, yeah, it's good stuff. Um, there are soap operas in the Bible. You don't have to go any farther than Bible stories for spice here. We got Adam and Eve, the fourth chapter of the first book of the Bible. Right? Adam and Eve, the first man, the first woman, although some say that Lilith was actually the first wife, but she didn't want to, she had plans of her own. She went off. So Eve was the mother of Cain and Abel. the first brother Cain, he went into farming, and Abel apparently was a shepherd, working with livestock and stuff like that. So they had the little family business, and Abel came forth with his little offering, his livestock, and apparently Cain, God liked Abel's offering, and Cain came up with some grain or Cain's grain or whatever he grew in the field. And God wasn't so happy. It's not his best work. Cain, go back and do better. So Cain got all jealous and upset and went out and killed his brother in the field. God said, "Okay, now you can't farm anymore. You're done. Soil's nothing's going to grow." So he was, destined for a life of wandering, right? Um, and then he put a mark on Cain so that nobody would kill him because then he would have to be avenged sevenfold, and he didn't want anything bad to happen to anybody for killing Cain accidentally or whatever. So there's that. Then Adam and Eve went back to the drawing board and had a kid named Seth. It was one of my son's friends when he was a kid, Seth. Yeah. Um, so I think my son, our oldest son, went to his bar mitzvah. Anyway, good kid, smart. Um, anyway, so yeah. So then let's see. There's a song: "Offer to God a sacrifice of praise." So I think that. So this is the psalm for the day. And the bottom line is, you can go to church and say all the prayers you want, and be as holy as you want. But it's like when I used to go to church with my parents, they go and everybody would pray and bow heads and say the words and do the things. And then they'd go out in the parking lot and almost kill each other, trying to see who could get the hell out of the parking lot. First, some people would even sneak out before the priest went down the aisle so that they could get the jump on getting out of the parking lot. All the good Catholics, go, have drinks or go out for dinner or whatever. And then some of the women, like mom's friends, be like hens, chatting away. Everybody would, my parents are different. We'd stay. The priest, and we'd go out. And my mom would see this person or that person, or they'd end up chatting. My uncle Johnny used to be one of those guys who collected the basket. So he had to stay and count the money and everything. So and of course we'd always go to mass. Sometimes it was Saturday night, 7:30. It was whatever it was. A lot of times we'd go to mass at the same time as my aunt and uncle who lived, nearby. And my cousin and I were the same age. We'd always be there and we'd see our friends there with their parents. So sometimes you'd get a gaggle because my parents were so involved in the parish school and, my school and the church and everything. So they'd be out there forever. It'd be getting dark, they'd be chatting and this one and that one. All the kids were I was never so bored in my life, and didn't do that to my kids growing up. I mean, sometimes we would stay after coffee and donuts or whatever, and the kids would be climbing trees. They'd be running around, so maybe we did a little bit, but it seemed like when I was growing up, but the bottom line is they would act one way in church, and then they get out in the parking lot, and they'd all be gossiping and and to me, it didn't seem right. It seemed like what you said in church should kind of agree with the kind of person you were when you left church. I wondered why we have to go to church. I mean, isn't it? I thought that it was, better if I could just be the best person God made me to be. If I just kept improving myself, maybe I could get to know God better. Because maybe he would like me better, like Abel. Maybe if I was able enough. I would be loved more. I don't know. That's a whole other video. I'll get to that some other time. But it's food for thought. Um, but anyway, um, you know, God, why do you, God says, we, why do you blame me for calling you on this? God sees us more clearly than we see ourselves. Um, you know, we, we bring the suffering on ourselves by refusing to deal with the things that are plain to God, obvious, right? As the nose on our face. God sees us, but we don't see ourselves. There's a lot of stuff in the way, right? So, I am the way, the truth, and the life, says the Lord. No one comes to the Father except through me, right? So, you can't come closer to God through some going to church, or maybe some people still like to. That's fine, but except through Jesus, says through Him. So, what Jesus actually says, you know He came to show us, how to be, in order to get through this life, take care of all of our karma and the stuff, and get back home, right? So, oh, so we have Mark. Okay, Mark 8. So there are those Pharisees, the priests, and everybody arguing with Jesus, trying to test him, trying to slip him up. You know, kind of like the devil. Except these are priests, so they should know better. But Jesus is so fresh; he's like sighing from the depths of his spirit. Why does this generation seek a sign? Because he says, no sign will be. Men, I say to you, it's like, okay, listen up. I'm saying to you, no, you're not going to get a sign. Then he gets in the boat and he goes to the other shore. Right? He has to get away from them because they don't have faith. He was the sign. He's like, what are you looking for? They're not seeing what's right in front of them. He was the sign. He was the one sent to show them their shadows, the very things that you know that um, that they couldn't see. He was there to, you know, say those are the things that you need to fix before you can, before you're healed, before you're whole. Right? Jesus was whole, and he came to show us how to be whole, how to be healed. Right? So, as far as I can tell, don't take me on any of this. I'm not preaching. I'm just piecing it together. If any of it rings true, whatever. I'm just spouting. Anyway. And every week I kind of get a little better at it. Kind of makes more sense to me. And making my own path. So, okay, so this is get Zazoo, get on with it. Get on to the song. Okay. Now I'm on time. All right. Song of the week. Drum roll. Fleetwood Mac. So I was 10. No, I was 11 when this song came out. Go Your Own Way, which Cain had to do after he got, after he killed his brother, and he had to go his own way, right? Go your own way. Yeah, not pretty much. When I was that age, I thought the song was just about, um, you know, you can go your own way, like doing your own thing, in life. I really didn't know what packing up and shacking up meant. I thought it was about being independent. But anyway, yeah. So, yeah, this song, So that's from Rumors, okay? Rumors came out in 77. So Stevie Nicks and Lindsey Buckingham apparently broke up during the making of this album, Rumors. She was upset. She made a comeback song to get back at him, but apparently she was playing the tambourine on this and he cut it out. So there's that. Um, yeah, so you could tell there were some raw emotions. Lindsey Buckingham wrote the song Stream of Consciousness. What is that? It's my fridge making noise. Um, so, obviously their conflict, trying to work together after breaking up, it fueled his creativity, right? It, just like Adam and Eve. It's like, I guess that's the way I see it. So, the song, let's see, was nominated for a Grammy 1978 for vocals, but it lost to New Kid in Town by the Eagles. Um, yeah, so Mick Fleetwood on the drums is a really big part of this song. I mean, the drums. Millennials we're kind of getting into the Fleetwood Mac, probably because their parents are boomers, played it a lot. But yeah, well, this is the first single um, to hit the top 10. Their first top 10 hit in the U.S. So I guess in 2010, Rolling Stone voted it the number 120th greatest hits of all time, and then they bumped it down to 401 in 2021. So Rolling Stone said it's the number two best Fleetwood Mac song of all time. So there's that. Um, so the band had rented a house in Florida that they claim was written there, but the house had bad vibes. It was haunted. It's kind of like this car. Uh, my, my former spouse bought in 2011. He said, "Yeah, I'm gonna buy this." It was a gray car. I won't say what brand it was, but I said, "You know what? It gives me bad vibes." He bought it anyway. He's listening. So it seemed like that car, every time we went out in it, we'd have a fight or something. It had I would be driving it, and I called it the demon car because the lights would flash on and I couldn't get them off. Like driving on the highway, the overhead lights would go on. Weird stuff would happen. So, um, yeah, I guess he's still having trouble with it. He's having trouble getting the dealer to fix a certain brake problem that he had with it. And it's acting up. So he actually admitted that I was right. This is after the divorce. He kind of admitted that I was right about that car, which was kind of satisfying because I always knew that there was some bad, it was possessed. But anyway, uh, you can't prove any of this stuff. People just have to figure it out on their own. I can sense energy. Um, yeah. So Stevie Nicks was playing the tambourine. I guess he took her part. Did I say that already? Yeah, he took her. So there's this back and forth. Um, yeah. Um, and she was upset because he said that she was packing up and shacking up. She claims that he made it up, but who knows? Uh, yeah, that's a tough one there. I mean, if you're in a band with somebody, you meet somebody at work and then you break up. It's very awkward. It's very hard to work with people, after that, especially when they were so successful. I can see that. Um, and then being boomers who are very, you know, expressive, uh, artistic. It's the Leo vibe. Leo, Pluto and Leo generation. You know, that's that's their thing. Make love, peace, whatever. Anyway, they're not. I, who knows? Who knows? But I am thankful that they put all of this conflict into their music because it's a great song. I mean, come on. Fleetwood Mac, it's great music. So I'm not surprised the kids are getting into it. The kids, you know. Um, yeah, so when I was a kid, I didn't get, of course, I didn't know any of this stuff. I would just hear the song and think it was a good song. You can go your own way. Okay, I'll go my own way. I was a very independent kid anyway. Um, so yeah, but this is the backdrop of my elementary and middle school years. Middle school, I guess, was, we had disco, we had this kind of stuff. We had great music, the Eagles. Yeah, it was good, good music to grow up to. Um, yeah, so there's that about Gen X. We had some good music. We had, and I grew up in a musical family. So my dad played, the sax. My mom, I was playing the Hammond organ, like what's her name, Christine McVie plays the Hammond organ on this. Um, I was performing. I wasn't just listening to music. I was playing the banjo. I was learning, and then my cousins followed me, younger Gen X cousins. They see me in their, my mom, my younger cousin, who was born in '68. He'd come over and my uncle would say, "Look at Leslie, doesn't she play well on the organ?" And then my mom would say, well, you got to sign him up for organ lessons. So we did. And so then he started taking organ lessons. And then when he had his kids, his daughter, who's a little older than our oldest son, she started taking piano. And all his kids started getting into music. So it gets passed down. So, these are good things in families to encourage creativity instead of, you know, and having a pet. Because if our boys didn't have our dog, BB, there were some trips all together in that car when those two were going at it. They would have killed each other. So it's good that we had the dog because they'd focus on the dog, and they'd both, you know, be able to pet her and keep her calm so they didn't go at each other. See, parents. So, yeah, I guess I'm finished up a little bit early this week. I don't have as much to say. So I'm going to sign off, go have my snack. And, yeah, I'm having leftover, what am I having? Turkey pumpkin chili leftover. I was going to make mac and cheese, but I forgot to buy the beets. And I can't have mac and cheese without canned beets and a little vinegar. So I'm going to have that tomorrow. But, yeah. So I wish you a good week. And if you have the day off tomorrow, enjoy it. And yeah, you better go get your pennies because I hear they might be discontinued. So you've got your Lincoln pennies or whatever, all your change. Was Lincoln on the penny? I don't think it was Lincoln. Yeah, and then Washington is on the quarter, right? Anyway, uh, that's my little nod to the presidents. Yeah. So until next week, same time, the same place, different time. Zazoo Plazz signing up. Take care.